Do we have the angle right? Hi. Happy Saturday.
Good morning.
I feel like the angle is wrong. Hi. It is January 31st, the last day of January 2026. It is Saturday, and we are doing the morning study for Dream Big Today. We are Paul and Cassie, and we are from Minnesota.
It's freezing up here.
It's freezing.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's been freezing a lot of places. We are on, but I can't see me yet. Okay. Welcome. Today we are reading Exodus 12 and 13. The last half of 12, the beginning part of 13. And then we have Matthew. I knew all this before I came on. Matthew 20, 29 through 21. It's a lot of good stuff. And when you start looking into what all of it is, it relates really well together. So I don't know if we'll be able to convey that, but we're going to try. So welcome. We are a ministry that loves to read the Bible. 1 year plan through Tyndale. This is the NLT version because it's most understandable to people. You go ahead and do your own version as you feel called. But we do some commentaries and watch some podcasts about the reading that we do so that we are a little bit more informed and dive in. We like to dive in. Are you going to need a battery?
I've been up all night with junior high kids, and my battery might be a little low. Not just on my phone.
Here, take that.
I'm fine.
I can't see if we're live yet, so we'll just get right in here. In Exodus, we are talking about the Passover. It's explaining the Passover, and it is a day to remember. This is important because this will be a law for all time, it says. There's a lot of instructions in it. There's a lot of direction, and there's a lot of reason why. But did you want to say something about that?
It's interesting how this is what God kind of reset everything as far as time, the day, the dates. This is when their calendar starts, and how they're starting anew, how they're starting fresh.
The year starts now.
Yeah, what really hit me all the time as reading through this was the notice of get rid of the yeast in your life. Don't have that in your life. So when you make that decision and when God forgives you, that's your starting point. And it just was so evident that God was, as he always does, he uses the children of Israel as a parallel to us and our lives and our spiritual lives.
Mm-hmm. And every year to remember. So I don't, do you have a day where you buried your old self and became new in Christ?
I remember sitting on my parents' bed and saying, God's the last time I'm going to do this. Just because, growing up in a Christian household, had given my life over and over and over again because you go to camp, you do this, you do that.
There's always an altar call.
I'm done starting. And I was young. I was very young. So. And
that's that yearly renewal.
Yeah.
The yearly renewal.
But I do remember it like it was yesterday.
Right.
How about you?
Yes. October 6th, 1993. I remember the day well. God called me home. Not home. To be new in him. So we have some people on. I want to say good morning to Melissa and Sherry and Ann. Good morning. Nancy. Yes, it is cold. Debbie and Andy. Good morning. Nancy's watching on YouTube. We appreciate that. Raquel and Debbie's, I think it was your battery comment. She loved that, Paul. So welcome. Thank you. We're going to be a little disheveled because, we haven't really talked this morning yet. But, and I feel like everyone talks about the yeast, but this day to remember, bringing them out of slavery, all of this Passover and the yeast. So it's so important that we have that day, but we don't keep doing it over and over, but that we revisit it a lot so that we can remember maybe the turmoil that it was beforehand, maybe the blessing that you received in that, right? Sometimes when we get to a point where it just becomes on the calendar and it's not in our heart, we don't depend on him. We don't have the attitude of gratitude that we should. I remember clearly being saved and where I was in my thoughts and my actions before knowing who God was. And I'm so grateful that I have the date, because I'm somebody that needs to remember that. And obviously I'm a crier. So journaling is important to me, and going back and looking and seeing what brought me to that. What was the environment around me like? 180, guys.
Well, I think...
and that's a lot of Old Testament.
Yeah, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead on 13, going to 13. It says, on this day in early spring, in the month of Abib,
Spring.
You have been set free. You must celebrate this event in this month each year after the Lord brings you out of the land of the Canaanites, and so on. I think it's important to remember that day, because there is no greater day when you are set free, and to celebrate it and to make it important. And God tells us to do that. And I always thought it was cool how God had the Israelites either build a temple or put a mound. And why did we put a mound? Because someday when you're walking by with your children, you can say, hey, I remember the day when, and then you tell them the story. And I think that is what is so important, is to tell the story.
Well, and God put that in our brain so that we would remember it. Like, yes, smell will bring you back to a memory. A sound will bring you back to something. It's important to, God placed that in our head.
Yes,
so we would have that. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
Nope, go right ahead.
Okay. No, so anyway, it's serious, and I feel like everyone talks about the yeast, but it is really important to remember how long they were not to have that before the festival, so that was a big deal. So it says in 19 that anyone who eats anything that has yeast during this week will be cut off from the community of Israel, and these regulations apply to both the foreigners and the native born. So sin is serious. I mean, yeast represents sin in the Bible, so...
And I also think it's neat how God did not exclude foreigners.
Right.
And I don't mean that as foreigners, but those that were not Jews. They were, if you do what he has commanded, then you are welcome to partake.
Mm-hmm. And that this preparation, all of these instructions, it was an act of faith. It's a verb. It's a do. It's be a part of. And in 21 it says, go pick out a lamb. Do you know that they picked out the lamb on the 10th day of the month, and they sacrificed the lamb on the 14th day of the month? That means that for 4 days they found a lamb or a young goat that was without blemish, and they took special care of it, bringing it in their home, feeding it special, making sure that it was protected and no bones broken, right?
Right.
And then on the 14th day, they slaughtered that animal. And a lamb was to feed a household, so 10 to 15 people. And I just think of the kids, how attached I get to an animal. That this is like, okay, don't get too attached. We're slaughtering it, but you're treating it specially. You're loving it, and it really shows that we are to sacrifice where it actually makes a dent in our lives, or hurts our heart.
There's
sacrificially giving. Yeah.
There's a relationship. It always comes down to the relationship.
Yep. Which is exactly what we need to have with God. And also we're still in 12. 12 is a long chapter. So the Passover happens, and the Israelites are like, get out of here. But Pharaoh's like, but bless me before you go. So Pharaoh, I read a little bit about that, and they grow up like a god. They are groomed to be and thought of themselves as a god. So when all this was happening, and of course Moses' God was superior, he's like, yes, get out of here. It's about time. I'm done with you. But also in the hardening of the heart, God, I saw that this year as God using it to change the Israelite, not just Pharaoh. And then, like I said yesterday, maybe in the darkness that some Egyptians went to the Israelite side, and these are the foreigners that they're talking about among them, because it says that it's estimated to be 2 million people, families, individuals left Egypt.
Well, and I think, oh my goodness, this is why I'm being tired. I can't remember what I was going to say. I think one thing that impressed me is 430 years we've been the United States for, what did you say, 250 this year? So we're a little over halfway there. Think about how long it's been, which none of us go back to 1776, I don't believe. But that's how long they've been in slavery. That's all they knew, generation upon generation, since Joseph had left Egypt and had passed, and the pharaohs had changed over and over again, and then pretty soon, 430 years, and it was time you're just going to walk away from everything. Mm-hmm. How often...
That's why the stories, though, from generation to generation were so important. Yeah. I mean, they still had Joseph's bones with them. So these stories had to be passed down from generation to generation, because they didn't just have the book to go to, right? Mm-hmm. And that's important for us to do, too. Like, know grandma's story. Have grandma tell great-grandma's story. My dad's mom told us stories about when she was in Finland and about when the Titanic took off. And it's like, huh? Yeah. And now she's gone. I have questions as I get older and what that story was all about. But anyway, also I thought of how grateful the Israelites must have been when they were hearing all the wailing in Egypt about their firstborn gone, firstborn son, the death, and they were all spared. And that leads us into kind of understanding the dedication every year of the firstborn son and of the flock, because God spared them. And so when you dedicate, you're giving them back to God. Gave us 2 boys to raise, and I think daily we have to lay them at God's feet, because we had control when they were little, but now that they're older, we got no control. So anyway, that's what I was thinking of with that parallel.
Yeah.
And also the Last Supper, is on Passover. So every year they have this, it goes so well. There's also a spot in here that talks about how the lamb redeemed the donkey, or the lamb, you could buy back a donkey with a lamb. And today we read about how Jesus rode in on a colt, on a donkey colt.
Yep.
The lamb was sacrificed for the donkey.
They were in preparation in the Last Supper for exactly what was going on back in Exodus.
Right. Okay, more people to say hi to before we go to New Testament. Tina, Donna and Lowell, Cecilia, Lynn, another Debbie. Hi, Debbie. Eileen, hello, good morning. Hi, Leslie. Okay, thank you for joining us today. So we're going to go, I know we could go a lot more about Exodus, but it is time to go to Matthew. So we're in Matthew 20, 29 through chapter 21, verse 22. And I do have some notes on it because
that's what she does.
That's what I do. So we start out with the 2 blind men. And I love how they're saying, they shout, the son of David, the son of David, which this is a messianic term, meaning that they believed he was the Messiah. And the crowd in 31 is shushing them. Be quiet, be quiet. And they shouted even louder. The persistent, right? The persistence of something when you want it kind of remind me of the kids. Like, mom, 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 mom. Excuse me.
Does that end anytime soon, even though they're 22 and 25?
Well, with the oldest, yes. The youngest, no. He's still like, mom, mom. So, and with everything that must have been on Jesus' mind, because he knows what's coming. He's feeling the weight of it. He stopped and said, what do you want me to do for you? And they said, we want to see. And so it says in 34 that he felt sorry for them. And he touched their eyes. I love that. And this is showing, actually, yesterday, that last verse in, it'd be Matthew 20:28, where it says that, for even the Son of Man came not to be saved, but to serve others, give his life as a ransom for many. He was teaching the disciples what the service was all about.
I think,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that we so often forget what we're here for. What was the example that he showed us? So if we think about what was on his mind, he knew what was coming up. He knew that he was fulfilling prophecy by riding on the donkey. He knew that there was going to be an arrest. He knew there was going to be a trial. He knew there was going to be a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, torture. And he also knew that he was innocent, and that he was taking on the sin of the world, and yet still had time to stop and say, what do you want me to do for you? God is saying that today to each of us. What do we want him to do for us? And that doesn't mean shiny new car. That means opportunities to share the gospel. That means service like going to Uganda out of your normal routines, raising money, crazy flights, and then
coming back to ICE.
But just being willing to serve God's people like he served his people.
Right. In 21, that's kind of that too, because Jesus instructs about the colt, and he sent 2 of them, which is a pattern. They always send out in 2s. I love that without knowing what or where or who or how, they went. The disciples went. On God's word, they went. And how often do we do that? How often do we need to know more before we go and we believe and we go follow him? I mean, I think of the Uganda trip. That's not convenient. It's not comfortable to go into the unknown, yet God calls us to come out of that so that we depend on him. A lot of times when we're just stuck in our own convenience, our own comfortable, our own stuff, we don't depend on him anymore. Sometimes the gratitude goes away. So in 11 verse 5, how they talked about the prophecy, which was Zechariah 9:9, and it speaks of being humble, that tell the people of Jerusalem, look, your king is coming to you. He is humble, riding on a donkey's colt, humble. Yet so many thought he was coming as this big conqueror on a, whatever, something different. Their expectations stopped them from seeing what was really happening.
Well, and Cassie kept asking, why did they think that he was coming back as a conqueror or as a mighty king or, and there's a lot of things I think that you could answer that with, but I think that's what we want. We want this big bang, if you will. We want it to be easy, if you will. A great king that just sweeps through and makes everything right and gets rid of the oppression and saves us from the torment of this world. And Jesus said, I'm going to show you. I want you to serve.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. And I also thought it was interesting how it was the colt. Is that right? What was it? It was a
Yes.
colt. So it had never been ridden,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not a trained animal for war or anything like that. It was strictly transportation that had never been used before.
Mm-hmm.
I just there's something about that shows how humble he was
Mm-hmm.
and how humble he wanted to come in.
Yep.
And then that changed quickly.
It did. I mean, they went from, in verse 8, spreading their garments on the ground. Now, this was typical for royalty. People did this to welcome royalty into their village or their town or whatever it was. And so to cover the path, and all around they were shouting who he was. Yet you still have some people in tents saying, who is this? And they would answer, Jesus, the prophet. But he is the son of David. And this is also the first time that he is publicly, Jesus is allowing them to say publicly who he is. He is declaring himself king. And the crowd is excited and happy about it. It's a huge deal. But in just a few days, these same people.
Well, yeah, and you
It
want
will
to talk about making a declaration as he's tossing chairs and tables and
the
throwing
temple.
money changers. It says,
Yeah,
he said to them, the scriptures declare, my temple will be called a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves. Pretty clear how he feels about the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the announcement. I'm here.
Yeah.
And this
Well-
is my place.
And to set the scene, this is like, you have the huge temple, and there is a court of Gentiles. And it's kind of like all the merchants and money changers would come, like a big vendor fair, like a big sportsman show at a convention center. This is what that whole hubbub is, right? Double the prices. You can go down the street to McDonald's and get their dollar menu, but you go to the convention center and everything's triple price, right? So these animals were there because they were taking advantage of foreigners and those that were coming to worship God. You had to buy an animal there because it's too hard to travel with an unblemished animal. They were charging double prices. Then you had to pay for it to be inspected. And then they would say, oh, no, this isn't good enough. They'd have to go buy another animal. It was so frustrating for Jesus to see this, right? I'm sure of it. And it's a big trap. And it's estimated in today's value that this little thing that they did would have been in the millions, would have made the temple millions. So, of course, the Pharisees and the spiritual leaders don't want this to change because they're making ching off this. So it definitely angered Jesus because there were hearts there that just wanted to worship. So anyway, we quickly, in the morning, they get up and they're on the road to Jerusalem, and we have the parable about the fig tree. I love this one. So the fig tree is, there was no fruit on it. And, oh wait.
Yeah.
The kids in the temple were shouting.
Oh, you want to go
The
there? Yeah.
impatience of the Pharisees, they were indignant. Indignant means annoyed, angered, inconvenienced. So they were shouting, praise God, Son of David. They're all excited and everything. And then Jesus answers so poised. Like they said, do you hear what they're saying? And he's like, yes, of course.
Yeah, haven't you
Haven't you read the
heard?
scriptures? No, haven't you read the scriptures? I mean, he'll often go to the Pharisees saying, haven't you read the scriptures? Like, that's your job. You should know what they say. And I looked it up, and it was in, David said it in Psalm 8:2. And it says, you have taught the little children to praise you perfectly. May their example shame and silence your enemies.
Yeah. The children knew exactly who he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're to teach our kids that. They'll come back to it. Growing up in it. And that's what you pray. That's why you lay them at their feet, right?
Build that foundation.
That their heart feels drawn to God and that their flesh hates what God hates. That's our prayer every day for them. So then in the morning, now we get to the fig tree. And they're headed out to Jerusalem. And the fig tree is actually, when they were just done with the temple was very impressive as people were coming up to it. But inside was very empty, right? So the tree withers up, there's no fruit on it, so it looked impressive, and the disciples are like, how did that happen so quickly? Like, how do you not know this yet? But we do the same thing. It shows that his anger with religion without substance. Like, when we go to worship without our heart fully postured to him. Like, I've got my to-do list going on. I'm checking my phone in the, during the sermon, or not, I'm annoyed with worship, whatever, that kind of stuff is not full worship to him. And we have to put all that stuff down. Jesus just noticed that the temple was a circus in all of this.
Well, and I think that you have
fruit.
You have to dig a little bit, because it is almost like it's just thrown in there as this flippant, Jesus was just kind of frustrated in the morning, maybe because of the temple, maybe because of this, that, and the other. Yes, that's exactly right. He wanted to show two things. One, if you don't bear fruit, you're worthless. And two, that when you pray for something, because they were saying, how did that happen so quickly?
He said, if you have faith.
He tells them, if you have faith and don't doubt, you can do things like this yourselves and much more. Do we realize that? Mm-hmm. Does it bother us that we don't have the faith to make the changes that maybe we could make if we had that faith?
What stops us from that? Busyness, distractions, struggles.
The world telling us, no, you don't have that faith. No, you can't do that. But that's exactly what the world today wants us to say.
Yeah. So that is, it was packed. That's packed. And we only have a couple minutes left, so I wanted to say in Psalms 19, I want to read that because I did not see it last year, but see how many enemies I have and how viciously they hate me. I don't feel like I have enemies. We talked about this morning. I don't feel like anybody hates me. I don't feel like anybody avoids me. I don't feel like I have people that viciously hate me. But anybody who loves the Lord has an enemy that viciously wants to pounce on you and devour you and come to kill, steal, and destroy. Satan is our enemy. And we have to be aware of that. That's why it's saying to also protect me. It's so crucial for God to rescue us from that. And in that, no fear, because God has it. He has more power. And when you have that too, your faith makes you stronger and more confident, which is also why it's so important to be in the Word, because you can't have that confidence if you don't know who He is. And then lastly, did you have anything about that?
No.
And then lastly, in Proverbs, obviously this is a description of somebody we don't want to hang out with, somebody we don't want to be like, we don't want to emulate this. And when people act like this, wicked people, constant liars, signaling with deceit, perverted hearts, when people do this over and over, it gets easier and easier for them to do it. And God made our hearts. God made our hearts to be honest and true. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says He set eternity in our heart. There is a God-sized hole in our heart that we try to fill up with all kinds of other stuff. And when we can seek Him for the grief that we can't get over, for the addiction we can't get done with, for just that need, go to Him. It's His dwelling place. That's another thing. Ephesians 3:17 says that Christ will be more and more at home in your heart, living with you as you trust in Him.
Absolutely.
God is in our hearts. So be aware of these people that are in your lives. And remember, your heart was made by God, and for a time like this.
And go bless.
And go bless. So where we are, 9:00. You are loved. You are never alone. Put your prayer requests in the comments I'll go through and we will interact with you there. I thank you so much for being a part of study today, and enjoy your day. Read the Word again. Go dwell, camp out a little bit, and go be a blessing this weekend.
Go do it.
Go do it. Thank you, guys. Bye.